Hello everyone, welcome to Bajirao Ias Academy. We all knew that 2025 UPSC Mains is over, and we have some very important questions which were asked in 2025 Mains examination. And so let's understand these questions and the framework of these questions. And along with that, it is being said that UPSC Mains previous year question papers are actually a gold mine, because we can found important themes from the mains examination, and those themes will be helpful and handy in our preparation in the coming years. So therefore, if you can actually understand what UPSC is exactly asking from us, so there are chances that you can find out important and relevant themes from these PYQs. And apart from that, the objective of this session is not just the discussion and analysis of this year's mains question and answers, but also make sure that what should be the structure of these answers. So if you get to know about the structure of these answers, so it will be easier for you to structure the answers in your exam, because structuring and presentation of the answer is very important for UPSC examination. And in fact, the structuring can actually decide how many marks you will get in a particular question. So therefore, along with discussing the solutions for these questions, so we will also understand the structuring of the answer as well. So therefore, the first question that we're going to discuss is about the salient features of Harappan architecture. So let's understand the salient features of Harappan architecture. Now, if we talk about the Harappan architecture, so understand one thing: in General Studies paper 2, this is very important topic. Now, when I say a very important topic, there are certain aspects which are associated with the Harappan civilization, be it town planning or the society, the religious beliefs that are being followed, the political system that they have. So all these features are very important, and among them the town planning and Harappan architecture are very important topics. So therefore, you have to be thorough with Harappan town planning and Harappan architecture. So let's understand the model framework first for this question before going into the solution for this question. Now, how a model framework looks for this question. So firstly, we have a intro. Now, in the introduction itself, we all knew about the Harappan civilization and when it was started. And in fact, there was no one single agreement over the date on which, or the year at which, the Harappan civilization began. So therefore, first you have to write about the Harappan civilization or Harappan architecture was seen the first or earliest urbanization in India. And you could mention time frame and briefly mention the significance of Harappan architecture as well in the intro. So make sure that intro should be 25 to 30 words. It should not be more than that. And then when it comes to the body part of the answer, so remember that when they have asked about the Harappan architecture, so make sure that you divide this into the multiple headings. Now these headings must be followed by the subheadings as well. Now firstly, you need to talk about the elaborate urban planning that they have. For example, when I say the urban planning, you need to talk about the grid system that they have, and you need to talk about the burnt brick that they have used for the construction. And in fact, in the urban civilization, particularly in places like Harappa and Mohenjo-daro, there are the lower town and citadel were existing. So citadel was the place where the higher classes or the upper classes used to live. And in fact they have an elaborate drainage system. They have an elaborate drainage system, and the drainage system is very often covered with the stone slabs as well. And they have the great bathing site at Mohenjo-daro. Great bathing site at Mohenjo-daro. Now, don't you think that these are very important features of Harappan architecture, Harappan urban planning? So you have to mention all these points. And similarly, you should also talk about the drainage system that they have. And this is also a very important aspect, because they have elaborate drainage system, and these drains are actually covered with the stone slabs as well. And these drains also covering all the houses in a particular street. And apart from that, the public architecture that they have. Now when I say public architecture, they have a great bathing site. They have the granaries to store the food grains, right? So residential specialized structures and their significance. So you have to have mentioned all these points, because they could enrich your answer. And you need to link all the features of Harappan architecture with the economy and the technology. And when we talk about the conclusion for this answer, you just talk about the continuity. Now continuity in the sense from ancient times, right, from Harappan architecture, medieval times, and modern smart cities. So what is the important connecting link, right, from ancient, medieval till the modern smart cities? And what is the contemporary relevance of Harappan architecture? So you just have to mention all these points. So essentially your answer should have all these features, right? So it's clear for you. Now let's get into this answer. Now as I've already told you, first of all you just have to introduce this timeline of the Harappan civilization. So even though there is no agreement over the timeline of Indus Valley civilization or Harappan civilization, but it is generally agreed that they belong to 2600 BCE to 1900 BCE, right? So they even known as Indus Valley Civilization or IVC, and in fact they represent one of the earliest urban cultures of the Bronze Age, right? So they actually represent one of the earliest urban cultures of the Bronze Age. And in fact they spread across the modern day Pakistan, northwest India, and parts of Afghanistan. And in fact the Indus Valley civilization or the Harappan civilization has also contributed immensely to the development of planned urbanization, architectural sophistication, and even the hydraulic engineering as well, right? So this is the significance that we should understand, right? So and appreciate on the part of the Harappan civilization and their great architectural marvel. And if we talk about the architectural remains, so architectural remains from the sites such as Harappa, Mohenjo-daro, Dholvira, Lothal, Kalibangan, right? So these are all the places or the sites of the Harappan civilization. And in fact some places like Dholvir, Lothal, Kalibangan, and Rakhi Gadhi are actually places which are located in India itself. So they actually highlight a unique blend of functionality, aesthetics, civic consciousness. So ultimately they actually make Harappan architecture a benchmark in early human history. Now if we talk about the body of this particular question, now let's divide this question into multiple parts as I have already told you. So first of all we need to talk about the urban planning and grid system, because they have an elaborate grid pattern. Streets like Mohenjo-daro, Harappa, so they actually followed a grid pattern. And in fact Mohenjo-daro and Harappa are known as the largest cities in the Harappan civilization. So they have an elaborate town planning, and this grid pattern is actually part of this town planning. And in fact, in this grid pattern, the streets are actually cutting across the right angles with each other, so therefore they are very well planned cities. And in fact, they have used burnt bricks for uniform construction, and in fact no other civilization has not used burnt brick during Indus Valley civilization. There are other civilizations also, contemporary civilizations, but Harappans were the first to use this burnt brick. So therefore it is a great achievement on the part of the people of Harappan civilization. And as I've already told you that the cities are divided into two different parts. So one is citadel and the other is lower town. So this lower town is a residential area where normal people used to live. On the other hand, citadel is an administrative or religious hub. However, as per some historians, the citadel are the places where the upper classes used to live. So therefore, in urban planning and grid system, you have to mention this. And apart from that, you need to talk about the drainage and sanitation architecture, because as I've already told you that they have a sophisticated drainage system, a well developed drainage system. And also remember that we found this drainage system in modern times, which is the underground drainage system, right? So they have this underground drainage system, and this drainage system is fully covered, and they even have soak pits at places like Mohenjo-daro. And they even have individual houses, and those houses have their own private wells, bathrooms, and these bathrooms are also connected with the drains. So don't you think that it is a well planned urbanization, a town planning, and it is part of their architecture? And if we talk about the public architecture, so there was a great bath at a Mohenjo-daro, and this bath was used for a ritualistic purposes or religious purposes. However, this great bath at Mohenjo-daro is an example of waterproof brickwork and hydraulic engineering, because it was being said that this great bath at Mohenjo-daro have both drainage as well as the inlet as well, and this was used for ritualistic and civic usage. And there are even granaries at Harappa and Mohenjo-daro also, so they have to store their food grains in these granaries. So they have constructed these granaries elaborately, and they used to store the food grains, and the food grains were under the control of the state as well. So whenever they face situations like drought, they used to have this food grain. And they even constructed an assembly hall at the Mohenjo-daro. So therefore it has been pointing out towards the community gatherings and the administrative functions. So these are all the essential features of the town planning, the architecture during the Harappan civilization. And if we talk about the residential architecture, so the houses of different sizes. For example, the houses of different sizes have been indicating that at that point of time there was a social stratification of people. Based on the social status or economic status, there was a social stratification of the people as well. And similarly, as part of Harappan architecture, they have courtyards, multiple rooms, wells, and staircases. So therefore it has been suggesting a multi-storage structures and use of standardized brick ratio of 1:2:4, and this also highlights the technical uniformity. Right, so all these features are essential and important features of the architecture of the Harappan civilization. And similarly, they have fortifications and defensive structures as well. For example, Dholvira as a place had a massive stone fortifications. So they have constructed these forts with massive stones. And Kalibangan and Dholvira both are Harappan sites which are located in India. And even Kalibangan also, there are mud brick fortifications, fire altars, combining defense with the ritualistic elements. So these are also part of the Harappan architecture. And there are some specialized structures as well. For example, there is a dockyard at Lothal. For example, a marvel of maritime architecture and trade linkages. Right, so this dockyard is very famous. Lothal is located in a state of Gujarat, and water reservoirs were also found at a place called Dholvira. So they actually show advanced water management and conservation techniques in semi-arid areas like Rajasthan and Gujarat. So these are the marvels of the architecture of Harappan civilization. So if we talk about the material that they have used baked bricks or burnt bricks, stones, or even timber also. Ultimately, they have emphasized on standardization and achieving a symmetry, a purpose symmetry. For example, straight cutting across right angles with each other. So therefore, ultimately it has been highlighting a collective civic planning rather than individual expression on the part of the Harappan civilization or Harappan architecture, right? So this is how you need to mention all essential features of Harappan architecture with headings and subheadings also for better structuring. Now in conclusion, ultimately you have to mention that the Harappan architectural tradition actually reflects a unique synthesis of utility, civic consciousness, and technological innovation. So it is actually a blend of all these essential features, and that have ultimately led to the marvelous Indus Valley or Harappan civilization's town planning or overall architecture. So this could be considered as a holistic and a multi-dimensional answer, and this is how you need to write the answers, right? So in coming sessions we'll be discussing more and more questions, so therefore you will get a proper idea over the structuring and presentation of the answers and what are the essential and important points that one needs to mention to score high marks. So we'll be discussing very soon all the papers of general studies which 2025 of UPSC.